speaking of the food, to let you guys know, the price in the hotel for KPMG, it includes your transportation from the airport to the lake house and also food and beverages. Amazing. I'm so excited. So that's why that's the price difference between KPMG Lake House and the other hotel. Also to keep in mind, of course, all of this is on the email, but I know that it's a really long email and people don't read everything. It is a single occupancy room at KPMG. So if you're planning on bringing someone with you and they are planning to stay with you, then I would recommend you staying at the Hyatt or some other hotel because they will not allow you to have a guest in the room with you. The gala will be on the 2nd, on the October 3rd at the Hyatt Regency Hotel. Any questions regarding Summit so far? Awesome. Okay, great. So let's go ahead. I promised you guys that today we were going to do our check-ins with the second group. For those of you that are in the first group and you were not able to do your check-in, I will get to you guys after we finish with the second group. I have it all written down here. So remember, just to refresh everyone's memory, the check-in, something like this. Hello, hola, my name is Cristina Aguilera. I am the program director at HITEC. I currently live in San Jose, Costa Rica. And if you want, you can tell like a fun fact about yourself or a project that you're working on. However, we do have a lot of you, so let's try to make it a little snappy so that we can get to the content that Susan has prepared for us today. So let's start with Julio Toro. Mi vecino, by the way, since I'm in Costa Rica.
Almost, yeah. Hello, this is Julio Toro, Chief Information Officer at Copa Airlines. I am based in Panama, although right now I am in Vienna.
Beautiful, love it. Okay, thank you, Julio. Julio Hernandez. If he's here, give him a couple seconds, not here. Okay, vamos con, and if I butcher your name, I'm so sorry. Caitlin Jesus?
Yes, it's Caitlin Jesus or Kathleen Jesus. I'm Brazilian, and I am Vice President and CFO at IBM. I'm the CFO for the Americas team in the consulting area for IBM.
Amazing, thank you. And then just friendly reminder for the rest of the folks, feel free to take notes if there's somebody in your class that you want to connect with, later on. And that reminds me, this week I did create a private board readiness LinkedIn group for you all. We have to be connected, we have to be friends on LinkedIn in order for me to invite you to the private group. So I tried to connect with everyone. Some of you might have security, privacy things that I'm not able to connect. If you've not received an invite from me, please, and you're interested in being in this group, please reach out to me via LinkedIn, like make a connection with me, and then I can put you into the private group. Okay. Laercio, mi amigo.
Hola, Christine, ¿todo bien? Hello, hello. I am another Brazilian here, so Kathleen, I am from Brazil. I live in Miami. I've been living in Miami for the last 2 years, and I am the Vice President for Latin America for Cisco Systems. I'm very glad to be with this team here.
Gracias, Laercio. We're so happy to have you. Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Grott. I am a technology executive at Wells Fargo. I have a data analytics and a business process management team. I live in Delaware and I was born in Mayagüez, Puerto Rico.
Eso, Puerto Rico. Liz, músico. Here, okay. What about Ludmila?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, another Brazilian in the call.
Whoa!
There's a lot of Brazilians around. So my name is Ludmila. I'm based out of Brazilian. Muitos brasileiros. My name is Ludmila. I'm based out of São Paulo, Brazil. I'm the vice president for the IT organization in Latin America for Kenvue. So for those who don't know Kenvue yet, is the recent spin-off of the Johnson & Johnson consumer division. So I have on my back one of our most iconic products, Johnson's Baby, but also Tylenol, Listerine, Neutrogena are brands that might help you to connect with now Kenvue. That's our new company name that we are very proud of.
Yay, congratulations. Thank you. Okay, Lynette.
Hola, hola. I'm Lynette Aguilar with AT&T. I'm a vice president and general manager for North Texas. So I'm a market leader out here. I'm Mexican American, so happy to represent Mexico, but I'm a Texas gal, South Texas gal. And I see Angela and I saw a few others of you in Dallas. So for the Dallas crowd, if y'all want to get together, just put something in the chat and we can do a meetup.
Yay. Thank you, Lynette. Marcos, Grilanda. Okay. Maria.
I'm here. No.
Oh, great. Sorry,
I'm here.
Marcos. I
Oh, just
apologize.
connecting the camera. No worries. Another Brazilian. So
Oh
one
my
more
goodness.
to the group.
Could
I'm
it be
Marco
that
Miranda.
Brazil is beating Mexico in the board readiness class? Oh boy.
I guess so. At least I'm the fourth one today. So Miranda, I'm also based out of Miami. For the past 6 years, I am the managing director for Latin America at AWS, Amazon Web Services.
Thank you, Marcos. Maria.
Hey,
No, you're
Christine,
here.
thank you.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Well, I'm Muriel Shami. For those that I know for a while, I'm a client partner in the customer transformation practice in IBM for retail and consumer good accounts. I am from Dominican Republic and I am married to an Egyptian. As a fun fact, we speak 3 languages at home every day. Thank you for having me.
That
and I
is
am the IBM.
Very fun.
Yeah, and I'm the IBM representative for HITEC. Thank you.
Yay. Thank you for that as well. Okay, Marta de Catrel. Martita, I think I saw you.
Marta, you're there, but you're on mute.
Always the fight between the click and the remote. Marta Solano de Catrel. I am I work for end user technology at Morgan Stanley. I am similar to, I think it was Maria. I am kind of the high tech spoke within Morgan Stanley, and I come from Santa Marta, Colombia.
Eso, Colombia. Amo Colombia. Okay. Martín? Martin?
Yes, here I am, Martin. Yes, thank you, Kristen. Not Martin, not Steyer. Martin from Argentina. I work at HP. I'm one of the head of HR supporting some of the global business units and global functions. I've been with HP 14 years. I'm also a resident, like Marcos, in Miami. I think I have the opportunity to meet some of you. Every time we get together, we say that we're going to do a gathering in Miami, but I think we need to really make it happen. So really happy to be here and see many familiar faces already.
Yay, thank you, Martín. Miami is in second place, I guess. Okay, Matías.
Hi, everyone. So Matias Benitez, also from Argentina. So we got a large number of representatives here, it looks like. I'm a VP of engineering for Capital One, and I'm based in Austin, Texas. And I'm up for the Miami get together. And if we can time it when Messi plays, even better.
Awesome. I love it. Bueno, gracias, Matías. Michelle. Michelle Nix.
Yes, hi. So my name is Michelle Nix. I live in California. I'm Senior Director for Blue Shield of California. I work for Eddie Barrero, who I believe is, you guys know him in this program. And he's the one who placed me here. It's so amazing to see everybody and hear your fantastic accents. And I'm very jealous. Just going to say right now. It's awesome.
We love you, Michelle. Thank you. And welcome to the familia. Mónica Hernández.
Hola, everyone. Also from Colombia. I was born in Medellin, and I'm in Tampa, Florida now. So definitely let's get together in Miami. I'm actually an entrepreneur. My company is Mass Global. Mass means more. Some of you are actually my clients, so thank you. And so we're a digital consulting, and we have nearshore software development teams in Colombia, Argentina, and Mexico. And we also have a foundation, Mass Future. Very important for me to pay it forward. I became a software engineer thanks to a scholarship. So now through our foundation, we provide free technology education for women and Latinos.
Amazing. Thank you, Monica, for everything you do. Nora.
Hi, I'm Nora. I'm the VP of People at Tinder. I live in Los Angeles and I'm from Mexico.
Thank you, Nora. Bienvenida. Priscila.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you. I'm Priscilla, Managing Director based in New York for Accenture. I've been with Accenture for 20 years now. I know some of the people in the call that I worked with in the past and some of them that I still work with. It's so nice to meet you all here today. This has been an amazing program. I'm very excited about the opportunities we're going to have ahead of us. Thank you for having me.
Priscila, y tampoco, you didn't say
Brazilian.
Another tally
Another
tally for Brazil. Yes.
Yep.
Another tally. But who's counting? Okay. Ragnar Miguel, is it just Miguel or do you want to go by Ragnar Miguel? Because I have both.
Miguel's just fine. Miguel.
Miguel, excelente. Okay.
Mucho gusto. Miguel Muir with Accenture. I lead a lot of our work on data and AI across our communications media technology practice. Managing Director, been at Accenture for 25 years, and thrilled to be here. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and my mother is from Ecuador. So I've been there many times in the 70s and 80s and through now. So
beautiful. Thank you, Miguel. Raúl.
Hola, buenas tardes. Raúl Aldre. I'm the CIO at Citibank Retail Services. Living in Dallas, Texas. For those that are around, I heard some people from AT&T in the neighborhood. Was born in Venezuela, and I'm also the executive sponsor for HITEC within Citi.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Bienvenido. Robert or Rob, I don't know which one you want me to use, but.
Whichever you prefer, no preference. Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Duhart. I come from the DC metropolitan area. I don't hear many of folks coming from the DC area. I am the VP CISO of e-commerce, Deputy CISO of Walmart. I am also the executive sponsor for HITEC at Walmart, and I am a Cubano. I don't hear many of us on this call. We need more.
Eso, cubanito. I'm half Cuban, so I'll stick with you.
That counts. Count you.
Ryan Ramirez.
Hello. Hey, Christine, team. So Ryan Ramirez, Mexicano. We need more Mexicanos here. I don't know what's going on with Mexico today. But I am the head of infrastructure with ConocoPhillips. This is my second week with ConocoPhillips. I was with Lockheed Martin the last time we talked. So I relocated from Dallas to Houston. So I'm in the Houston area. If anybody's in Houston, let's hook up. I am from South Texas, Lynette, from the McAllen area. So just FYI. And happy to be here, guys.
We are so happy to have you, Ryan. Thank you so much and congratulations on your move. Otro amiguito mío, Sam Polanco.
Thank you, Christine. Sam Polanco, native New Yorker living in New Jersey, head of quality engineering accounting solutions for BNY Mellon. I'm also an executive member for HITEC. Previous EEP 2020 graduate. I am non-Brazilian, but I am Dominican from the Dominican Republic. My favorite HITEC moment is meeting Tim Campos, CIO of Apple, who's a fellow Dominicano.
Love it, Sam. Thank you so much. And we're so happy to have you in this program now that you've moved on from EP. Vamos a ver, Tanya, sorry.
I'm Tanya Thornburg. I am Vice President of Global Real Estate and Workplace Services for ServiceNow, based out of Nevada, just outside of Reno. Third generation American. My great-grandparents on my father's side come from Mexico and Spain.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tanya. And last but not least from this group is Yesenia. Okay, let's see here. We're going to go now jump back up to the first group. Let me see here. Do we have Álvaro Camarena? Okay, what about Angela?
Yes, I am here. Buenas tardes, Ángela Muñiz Rutherford, Española hecha y derecha. And I am here in Dallas with Lynette and some others. So yes, Lynette, I saw your note in the chat. Let's do it. Let's just do it inside because it's kind of hot here in Dallas. I too, like Lynette, work for AT&T. I'm a vice president. I lead the small business and mid-markets mobility sales team for the East region. So happy to be here. Great to see everybody, and a la Madrid for any soccer fans out there.
Amazing, Angela. Thank you so much. Vamos a ver con Claudia.
Hi, everyone. Claudia Massi. I work for Schneider Electric as the Vice President of Sales for the Cloud and Service Providers segment. I've been with HITEC since 2017 now. Involved in the scholarship committee, and I was part of EP back in 2018, I think. So I'm very happy to be part of this.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sticking with us so many years. Eddie Borrero, are you here? I don't know if he was able to join us today.
That's okay. I work for him. I'm better. I got you covered. Don't worry.
And you have a much better accent, Michelle.
What about Eduardo Briz?
Hello, guys. How are you? I'm Eduardo Briz. I'm the head of business operations for the High Performance Compute and Artificial Intelligence Business Unit in Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And for those that usually ask me, what does that mean? We just installed in March of 2023 the Frontier supercomputer that is the fastest supercomputer in the world with 1.1 at the 1.1 exascale. And what, for those of you that don't know, that means that it operates at the 1 quintillion operations per second. That means billions of billions. So that's my current role, and more happy to talk about it more. Mexican. Wow. I'm Mexican American.
Otro punto para México. Excelente. Thank you. Manny Ramos, are you here today? Okay. How about Francisco Fraga?
Hello, everybody. Francisco Fraga. I work with McKesson. I'm the Chief Information Officer of US Pharma, originally from Venezuela, now living in Dallas.
Excelente. Gracias, Francisco. Okay, is there anyone that's here now that has not done a check-in?
Ezequiel here. I don't know if you can see me. I can see my own camera here. I never use Meets. Ezequiel from Argentina. I'm the Vice President of HR for IBM for the Americas. I feel a bit Costa Rican. I lived in Costa Rica for 3 years. My youngest son is Costa Rican. I lived in Panama as well. I had the chance to live in Panama when I was younger. I wouldn't say I feel Brazilian. That won't sound very well, but I lived in Sao Paulo for 3 years. So a little bit Brazilian as well, but don't tell my Argentinian friends that I said it. So that's what I can say about me for now.
Thank you. Thank you for. Say it again.
I'm enjoying my mate here during the meeting.
Ay, bienvenida. Welcome. Is there anyone else that has not done a check-in?
I have not.
Bob. Oh my goodness. Well, now it's you.
But
You've
I
got
will
the
now.
spotlight.
So
Yeah.
this is Bob West. I'm Vice President and Chief Security Officer for Palo Alto Networks Prisma Cloud Division. I'm the executive sponsor for our HITEC membership. I live in Boulder, Colorado, grew up in Michigan. Mi mamá era mexicana. So one more point for the Mexicans.
You had to sneak that in there, right? Of course.
I had to. I felt
You
compelled.
guys got to let someone else
Yes.
win. Okay. I think we are ready. Susan, are you ready to roll?
I am ready. Yes. Let me just
right.
share my screen. So two things. By my count, I think Brazil still wins. So
I second that. We'll give it to them this time.
yeah. So we'll see what happens next time. And I counted 2 New Yorkers. So that's enough, but let us know if you're in the neighborhood and then we'll figure it out and get together for a party too.
I was in New York yesterday.
Missed you by a day. Next time, Bob, let me know.
Indeed.
And I missed to say that I live in the New York area too. So Brazilian and New York, like ticking both.
Yeah, you got it.
Great.
Yeah.
And Susan, I'm in New York too right now in the office.
So let's figure this out. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So just to go flip a couple of slides. Okay. So this is where we are. And first of all, just apologies from Stephen. He wanted to be here, but had a family issue, so he's not able to make it. So he will definitely be back next time, but he's here in spirit. So just as a sort of reminder, this is what we did. We've got 6 sessions altogether. We are at the end of this session. We'll be halfway through. Yay! We started April 104th. Sorry about that. April 14th, I think it was supposed to be. Just kind of did this overview of what boards do, and we'll do a little bit of a recap of the prior 2 sessions. We last time at the end of May, we talked about ESG, and I'm going to step back and say that we actually try not to use the phrase ESG anymore because it's just become so politicized, but it's hard to find something else that suggests what we're talking about. But it really was this whole conversation about stakeholders and how you see things through the lens of the various stakeholders. Today we're going to talk about board committees. And the reason we're going to do that is you don't really hear about that much in board readiness sessions. It's always about the board does this, the board does that. But boards, as they're recruiting for board members, they're not only saying, who do we want on this board, but they may have an opening in a committee, or they may be thinking about succession planning in a committee, or they may be wanting to start a new committee. And so much of the work of the board is done in committees that it's really important to understand the committee structure and what committees do as you start thinking about your board journey. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then again, just as a preview, next time it's going to be more sort of about you and what your roadmap to the boardroom might be. than what we call boardroom diplomacy. How do you really make your voice heard and avoid some of the traps that new board members run into? So here we go. Just, kind of going back a little bit, and I know I've said this before, and Stephen said it before, but I'll repeat it. This is not going to be me talking for the next hour. So please, kind of whether you raise your hand, whether you go off mute, whether you kind of do one of these to say, call on me, whatever you do, please, as things come up, kind of bring them up. Don't wait until the end. When we, sort of going back to where we started, this really kind of sets out what it is as an overview that boards do. Someone said that you can't see the content on Teams.
I think they were using their browser and can see it now.
You can see it okay now?
No, I actually cannot, but maybe we can share the slides afterwards if that's okay.
Yeah, they will be made available for you afterwards.
It could be the firewall from the company.
I'm accessing from the personal side. I'm not sure what it is. It's not even letting me open the Teams app. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me take that opportunity just to let everyone know. Ooh, let me get on camera. After the session, so before the session, I sent you guys an email when we were going to break you into groups, but there's also a link there for the replay sessions, and there's also links to take surveys after each session. We really, really would appreciate it if you could fill out those surveys, because it just helps us to know if we're on the right track. But the replays will be there, and the deck is also provided in that same link. And I'll send it to you again after the session.
So just, sort of as an overview, what we talked about in the first session is there are certain things that all boards do, whether it's the smallest nonprofit or a Fortune 100 company. The first is guiding strategy, and the next is capital allocation. We talked about oversight of compliance is something that boards always do, and they've gotten a little bit more intense now, as the Delaware courts have said, if there's something that is, kind of really gets to the heart of the company's risks, that the boards need to take a deep dive and really understand what the processes are and what the issues are with respect to compliance, whether it's cybersecurity is a perfect example. And human capital management is something that's changed over the years. It used to be that the board's role there was simply hiring and firing the CEO, period. Now, because of the fact that people are so much a part, particularly in tech companies, so much a part of where value is derived, that the boards are getting really a lot more involved in. So what is, the people strategy, and what's the culture, and what kind of oversight can we as board members provide? So that's a big board issue. Oversight of risk is enormous, and then leadership talent, which gets into succession planning. So how are we seeing the sort of war for the next CEO, but then also, do you have the right people in the right roles, and what are your, kind of, if you're getting into generative AI, what are your plans to develop groups that understand how to ask the right questions? And so those sorts of questions are very much strategic questions that are in the boardroom. But so, again, those categories: strategy, capital allocation, compliance, human capital management, risk, and leadership talent. If it's not in one of those categories, it's probably not a boardroom issue. It would be more operational. But if it's in those categories, boards are becoming more and more involved as time goes on. what we talked about with respect to stakeholders is, again, it's ESG is one of those phrases that can mean whatever you want it to mean, and depending on who's using it, it can be a good term or it can be a bad term. But really what it means is there are business issues that you have to be on top of if you're going to be a sustainable business. So it's not only about what the profit you're making, but what is the, we call them externalities, what's the effect you're having on the environment, whether it's the climate change, so the use of energy, or how employees are treated, water usage, all of those issues are very much front and center for employees. As we're seeing, they really care about them, customers care about them, and certainly the investors are all over these types of issues. So again, because of that, these have more and more become boardroom issues. And then, kind of the whole concept of social license. If you're getting the human capital issues wrong, or the human rights issues wrong, you're going to be in a world of hurt as a company, no matter what else you're doing right. And that's just the reality of what it is today. So that was the recap. Now we're going to talk about board committees. This wheel, for those of you that can see it, is it's busy for a reason, and I don't expect you to sort of see every single piece of it. There's a lot of work that the board has to do. And because of that, a lot of it gets done at the committee level. So if you think about the full board meetings, particularly in publicly traded companies, they tend to be, sort of fairly formal. There's not a lot of time for really diving in deeply on issues. Some companies are better at it than others. But the role really is, it's guidance, it's oversight, and it's those decisions that have to come up to the board level, which frankly aren't that many. So, as I said, hire and fire the CEO, approve the budget, approve major capital allocations, so sort of approve a major acquisition, approve, sort of a major investment. There's not a lot else that is really a decision of the board. More of it is this, sort of guidance and oversight. But because that guidance and oversight, there's so many topics that boards have to cover, you get committees where they can do a much deeper dive. They can be a little bit more informal. You get more expertise kind of concentrated on the committee so they can talk to each other. And then the committees will sort of do the work and report out to the board. So for public companies, there are 3 committees that are absolutely required. And a lot of private companies have all 3 of these as well, but not every private company does, or sometimes they combine them. And the first is the audit committee, which is pretty straightforward. We're going to go each committee in a little bit more depth in a couple of minutes, but essentially the audit committee is there to oversee the financial reporting and the company's compliance, and we'll get a little bit more into that in a moment. Compensation committee is there traditionally to decide how much money the CEO makes. That's expanded quite a bit, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get there too. And then the nominating and governance committee, which is also expanded quite a bit. It's at its core, it's about nominating new board members and overseeing how the board as a board is operating and board effectiveness and how it can be done better. But again, like everything, that's expanded. And then there are, sort of all these other committees, which some companies may have one or two of them. No company is going to have all of them, but companies have realized that they can't get all the work done in these three committees. So starting with risk, financial services companies are required to have a risk committee. In some companies outside of financial services, risk lives with the audit committee. A few non-financial services companies have a risk committee, but not that many. So that's primarily a financial services thing. Finance committee, some companies may have. You particularly see finance committees a lot in some of the larger nonprofits. So the university foundations, the kind of foundations that have large investments and large endowments, you'll see a finance committee there. Technology committees are something that's kind of a little bit newer. Again, it's not common, but some companies do have them. And that can be anything from digital transformation to cybersecurity to anything else. But for some companies, they've decided that the way to have that deeper dive is with a separate committee. Other companies say, well, it's really part of, going back to that kind of set of puzzle pieces from the first slide. It's back to, kind of gets to capital allocation, it gets to strategy. So you don't really need a separate technology committee. So it just depends on the company. Same with ESG. We're seeing more and more companies have separate ESG committees to look at the process, to take deeper dives. And an executive committee is something that you see very, very commonly in nonprofits. Sometimes you'll see them in for-profit companies, although it's less common. But typically, if there is an executive committee, it would be made up of the chairs of each of the other sitting committees. And you may see other committees too, strategy, compliance. Some companies have a safety committee, sometimes a public policy committee. You can also see sort of ad hoc temporary committees. So if there's an acquisition, there may be a separate committee that's going to take a look at it, particularly in privately owned companies where you've got a lot of heavy presence of investors on the board. Sometimes you need to have special committees to look at issues that may be a conflict of interest for some of the investors. And so you'll see a committee that would be split out of just the independent directors. Martine, so seeing you have audit, finance, investment and technology, HRC, and ESG. Do you want to come off mute and tell us a little?
Yeah, no, I thought that having a real example of how.
No, it's great.
So we do have those four only. I think you were referencing as a technology company, definitely technology plays a big role. Finance and investment go together. HRC naturally, audit naturally, and then the other one that has more to do with governance, with the nomination, and then social responsibility, as you were sharing with us.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. So just as you sort of think through, and before I go on, Eduardo, yeah.
Yes, one of the committees that was very active here in HPE, like a couple of years back, and last year was a risk committee. And so every BU will have, and every executive vice president will report back. And actually, I'm part of the risk committee that for this business unit, and we will report back on what are some of the major risks that we see as a business, in the industry. and then the implications that we see for the following year. So that's something that here they have been very, very active.
Yeah, no, that's great, and it is interesting. Risk is a lot of companies still have it as part of audit, which you can say maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing, but it's quite a common, which then sort of shifts who's on the audit committee, because all of a sudden you need someone who understands cyber risk on the audit committee. And you may need someone who understands other types of risks on the audit committee as well that are non-financial risks. So it's kind of an interesting evolution. But the audit committee, and this is true whether it's a nonprofit or a for-profit company. Number one, audit committee's job is the disclosures, and particularly looking at the financial disclosures, the internal controls over financial reporting, oversight of internal audit. There's, at least for public companies, under Sarbanes-Oxley, which, for those of you who are not familiar with it, was established in about 2002 after a whole bunch of scandals. And the idea was to give the audit committee, really the power as an independent body to provide strong oversight over financial reporting. And so the head of internal audit actually is the only person in the company other than the CEO who reports directly to a board member. And that's mandated by law to provide that, sort of independent connectivity. So you'll see internal heads of audit, often they report administratively to the CFO. And no one within the company really thinks about them as having any kind of a different reporting structure, but they actually do. They actually report directly to the chair of the audit committee. The audit committee, also the independent auditors work for the audit committee. So every year you'll see the audit committee meeting with separately both the independent auditors and the internal auditors to kind of go through, okay, so what are the audit plans? And obviously it's for the internal audit particularly, it's heavily tied to the company's risk profile, and to really sort of dig in and say, okay, what are the things that we expect you to do each year? With respect to compliance, whistleblower processes should be monitored by the audit committee. You'll see them going to various places in terms of the actual whistleblower complaints as they come in. And usually what companies will do is they'll set something up to say, here's what we want to hear about a complaint immediately. So if someone's complaining about sexual harassment by someone in the C-suite, we want to know within minutes of when that comes in. And then the committee can decide whether they actually want to bring in someone to do an independent investigation or not. They also may say, we know that there's sort of tends to be this kind of, when there's a report to the committee about whistleblower complaints, anything significant will be flagged immediately. And then there's always this kind of huge bucket of other stuff. And it can include anything from I don't like the fact that they changed the coffee machines to, they painted the walls a color that I think is ugly, to, something significant and serious, whether it's fraud or sexual harassment or financial, misreporting. But you tend to get all of those things lumped together. And so it's incumbent on the audit committee to really specify how they want to see that information. So, one thing that a lot of audit committees do is they say, I want to see it separated out by division or by location, and by type of complaint with, something narrower than just, oh, it's all HR related. No, which ones are sexual harassment, which ones are discrimination, which ones are, sort of culture. And to kind of separate those out so you can see patterns as they emerge, as opposed to it all just kind of being in a lump. My guess is you're all at large, or most of you, almost all of you are at large companies with very sophisticated boards that have, kind of state-of-the-art processes. So you probably have all of that at your companies. But if you were to join a board, you might not see the kinds of processes that your own company has at a board. So it's good to know sort of what good looks like. Then, sort of it's routine that they're doing annual performance evaluations of the committee itself. And some of those are better than others. State of the art is to bring in, along with the board, some, kind of independent third party to do a series of interviews to really get at a performance evaluation that's a bit more robust than everyone just kind of sitting around and looking at each other and saying, hey, we had a good year, let's move on, which does frankly happen in a lot of boardrooms. Financial disclosures, audit committees typically will have a meeting prior to any quarterly report, and we'll be able to, get a sense of not only what the queue is going to look like, but what the script for the analyst call is going to look like and the types of questions that management might be expecting. Federico.
Yeah, it's a quick question, Susan. So for this kind of committee, are there some roles or some careers that I'm imagining, accountants or lawyers, or how much are the people that are in the board need to have kind of a deep understanding on the process for, financial disclosures or audits, because it's highly specialized in this case?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So every audit committee of a public company needs to have something called a qualified financial expert. And that's something that there's a bit of self-identification involved. There's an SEC regulation, and there's sort of a list of things that can qualify the person to, sort of self-identify as being that sort of an expert. So certainly, someone who's been an auditor at an audit, one of the big four firms would qualify. Someone who's been the CFO of a public company would qualify. But it's not limited to those two roles. But someone who really understands financial reporting would, sort of take on that role. You need one. You don't need to have every member of the committee to be that kind of expert. You do need every member of the committee to be financially literate. And again, that's self-identified. But certainly to be able to follow and engage in the conversation about the earnings releases and the financial reporting. And what you see in some companies is, again, it depends on the company. It depends on the complexity of their financial reporting. But a number of companies that, aren't overly complex, they're, just kind of tech companies or consumer products companies, they will actually put every new board member on the audit committee and for a period of time. And the reason is that if you're on the audit committee, unlike other committees, you're seeing, sort of the broad swath of what the company is doing and how it makes money. And so it's a good way to really get to understand the company. You're also seeing, again, depending on what the scope of the audit committee is, if there's not a separate risk committee. And so the audit committee has responsibility for risk. Someone with a risk background will obviously be placed on the audit committee. And some audit committees do have responsibility for cyber oversight. And so that would be, again, you're not a financial expert, but you're on the committee to provide financial literacy and oversight of your specific area of expertise, the cyber. With respect to cyber, so as some of you may know, the SEC has been working on rules for certain disclosures with respect to cybersecurity, and they came out finally yesterday. And two things. One is there was some question about when you needed to disclose a cyber breach. There were in the proposal two things that did not make it through to the final rule. One was that you have a certain number, I think it's 4 days, 3 or 4 days, to disclose kind of something that's material, but the definition of material wasn't breach per breach. So if you had sort of a series of breaches that collectively were material, then you had a period, kind of a very short time period to disclose it, which is really sort of unworkable because you're always kind of looking backwards and it just becomes very cumbersome. So they said, it's if this particular breach is financially material to the company, then that's what triggers your disclosure obligation. And then in addition, if the Department of Justice asks you not to disclose it because of an investigation that they are doing, you have an additional 30 days before you have to disclose. The other thing was, as originally written, the proposal was that every board needs to declare whether or not they have a cyber expert on the board. And there was a lot of controversy over that. They took that out, so that's not part of the final rule. So the final rule does say board has to describe how it's overseeing cyber. And so if you have an expertise in cyber and are willing to make that, kind of public, that probably is something that would be included in that description. But they're not putting every company on the spot to say, do you or don't you have a cyber expert? Any more questions or comments about the audit committee before I move on? Okay. So yeah, the next one is compensation was always the compensation committee until recently it's become the compensation and human capital committee, or sometimes it's called the compensation and talent committee. And again, what's in blue, for those of you who can see it, are sort of the traditional roles that every one of these committees will have. What's green is, kind of some do, some don't, and it's a little bit more modern. But basically, to approve the goals relevant to the CEO's compensation. And also evaluate the CEO performance. It's the full board that will actually approve CEO compensation, but the evaluation and the recommendation comes from the committee. And so typically there will be an external compensation consultant that will work very closely with the compensation committee. There's a recommendation with respect to compensation of the top executives and also incentive and equity-based compensation plans. And the equity plans, not this, kind of specifics of the plans, but sort of how much stock is being allocated have to be approved by the shareholders as well. So those go through the compensation committee first and then through the full board. Then you get, sort of more kind of the high level step back, what's our compensation philosophy? What are the behaviors that we're trying to incent? And what are the behaviors that we want to avoid incenting? What are the risks that might come out of some of our compensation incentives? So those are kind of deep philosophical questions, not just for compensation of executives, but for compensation throughout the organization. Come into play in the compensation committee. And that's, sort of, again, why you want to have a deep dive, because those are the kinds of discussions that really can take time. You may want to talk about them 3 or 4 times before you kind of come to a consensus. And in the committees, you have the flexibility to do that. The compensation committee also provides oversight of the compensation disclosures. For those of you who have not done so, I strongly urge you to Google your company's proxy statement. And if yours, and if you want to get a comparison, Google someone else's company's proxy statement as well. There will be quite extensive disclosures with respect to compensation in the proxy statement, and those disclosures seem to expand periodically. So we won't get into the details of them here, but just be aware that that's something where the compensation committee has to feel very comfortable with the disclosures. And every company that is public has to do something that's kind of colloquially referred to as say on pay, which means that the company puts the executive pay up for a shareholder vote. It's an advisory vote. It's non-binding, but the company has to decide, A, are we going to do it every year or every 2 years or every 3 years? Those are the choices. And B, to actually put the pay up for a vote. Counterintuitively, a lot of companies put it up for a vote every year as opposed to every 3 years, which tends to be the best practice, because what will happen is, say there's a payout that the investors really object to, and so you get a strong message in a say and pay vote. What happens the next time is that they may vote against the chair of the compensation committee. And if they think that the chair of the compensation committee isn't listening, the time after that, they may vote against the entire compensation committee. So it's, if you do it every year, it's just a better way to sort of keep on, kind of on the pulse of how investors are thinking about it. You don't want to sort of wait 3 years and then find out that they're really appalled with what you're doing and are voting against significant parts of the board. It is not uncommon for investors to question pay. It is uncommon for there to be a majority vote against the pay, but it does happen. Again, it's advisory, it's non-binding, but it does send a strong message. And compensation committee chairs are quite frequently part of the investor engagement group, particularly if there's a thorny issue involving, say, on pay. Excuse me, they will talk directly to investors to say, look, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, and to really listen, most importantly, to understand how investors are thinking about it and what their issues are. So then, kind of going into the green area, human capital, DEI, and culture, these are the three areas where we're now seeing these committees expand. And so they are looking at, how are we treating our employees, mental health issues, leave issues, work from home versus not, all of those kinds of topics will be under discussion at the boardroom, which again doesn't mean that the board is making the decision on them, but they certainly will be asking questions and asking management, what kind of options have you considered? How does it relate to strategy? How does it relate to what your competitors are doing? And is it the best thing for your company as you work to attract and retain top talent in the field? DEI definitely, and I say that and then I pause, because the companies that care about it. The companies that don't have someone in the C-suite who cares about it will only discuss it if someone on the board brings it up. And sometimes that can be challenging, particularly if you're on the board, the only person on the board from an underrepresented group. You want to kind of find that balance of not always being the only one talking about diversity, but at the same time, making sure that it stays on the radar, because it's really important. And that can be, depending on the board, that can be something that requires some finesse or some frustration, or, when we get into it in a couple of weeks, the question about boardroom dynamics and boardroom diplomacy, and how do you bring those questions up? But certainly boards quite commonly ask to see all of the significant diversity metrics, not only for the workforce, but supplier diversity as well. And so it would certainly be appropriate for board members to ask those questions. And then the last thing is culture, and it's so hard, when you think about, you're on a board, you're not there day to day. Everyone's on their best behavior around you. So how are you really going to understand what the company's culture is? And that's something that a lot of boards struggle with. The human capital committees, first of all, will push for engagement surveys. And then, a lot of times just sort of do their own, reading Glassdoor, walking the hallways, going to town halls. If it's a place that has retail outlets, just, going in as a fly on the wall and, kind of getting a sense of how the employees feel about, their workplace. And there's a lot of time outside the boardroom that's spent on those things. Yeah, Lynette.
I'm curious, and I had to step away for a second, so I apologize if I missed this, but I'm curious, what's the role of the board in succession planning at the executive level? Is that
Yeah, no, That's a great question. So certainly it is very, very much involved in CEO succession planning. It is a board decision. And sometimes CEOs aren't happy with that, but that's the way it is. We're seeing boards get involved in succession planning beyond the CEO. So being a little bit more hands-off and saying, CEO, this is your decision, but we'd like to know how you're thinking about succession at the C-suite. We'd like to make sure we know the people that are potential candidates for those C-suite roles. And really having deep conversations about the philosophy there. So for C-suite, and also if there are, other key roles that aren't necessarily C-suite roles. So it's a great question, because that is absolutely something that they work in.
Yeah, I think in my head I was trying to think through succession planning in your DE&I comments, right? And I think a lot of us are used to, 1 foot in corporate politics, 1 foot in living our authenticity and culture and trying to balance the two. But I could see where there would be a role of, when you look at the DE&I throughout the company, how could the board help make sure there's representation at more levels?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And frankly, I see a lot of board members, providing that representation themselves, kind of being out there and, speaking to the, BRG groups and, sort of having lunches and having dinners that the CEO knows about but doesn't attend, to just sort of create that connectivity and that view of, wow, there is someone at that level that looks like me, and it's can make a difference. So there's definitely a lot of that goes on.
Thanks, Susan.
Yep. So next slide, nominating and governance. So, again, traditionally it was all about, well, before I start, Miguel.
Yeah, question on the, you mentioned that the board deals with the CEO compensation. Does the board have any say in the compensation for the top 8 people, the CFO and the business units leads? The people who report to the CEO, does the board have any say in their compensation?
Board has a say. Oh yeah, they have a lot of say.
Okay.
But I mean, yes, their say is influence, and ultimately they would need to approve the equity. Typically, they will approve for the named executive officers in the proxy. They would approve that as well. But there's a tremendous amount of influence. And especially because that's such, everyone understands that board members are in the hot seat when it comes to at least publicly disclosed compensation. So yes, they have quite a lot of say in it, and the compensation consultants. It's interesting. So compensation consultants often have kind of a very clear demarcation. They're working for the head of compensation in HR to devise sort of the compensation for the company as a whole, but they're working for the board on executive compensation, and it might even be different people within the consultant that does that.
One more question.
Sure.
It's how much does the board have say in a technology direction, especially these days, making a bet on large capital deployments? It's a probability game if you put money in this way versus somewhere else. How much does this? I've listened to you speak. It sounds like they have some say, but it's not really much. They have some can nudge the CEO, but if CEO says, "Hey, I'm going this way," as long as how much say in the capital deployments, the money to technology deployments do they have?
No, it's a great question. So there's a bunch of levers that the board can use, and then sort of it kind of depends on the relationship with the CEO as to how many of them they do use. But the first one is they do approve the annual budget. So that would be the first, if something looks off to them. The second is every company has sort of its metrics that if it's over X amount for a capital expenditure project, it has to go up to board approval. And that's going to depend on the size of the company. So, in a smaller company, it may be anything over $1 million, and a larger company, it may be, 10 million or 50 million or, whatever it is. But there will be a level. And then there's the kind of overall strategy. The board will have a strategic offsite with management, where they poke and prod at strategy, and ultimately there's always a question. The board needs to approve the strategy. It's a consensus. They don't own it. Management owns it, but it would be a rare CEO that would walk away with a strategy that the board didn't have a consensus that they were behind. It would be kind of career suicide to do that. And then the additional lever is that the board sets the compensation incentives for the CEO. So if the board thinks the CEO is not going far enough, then one of the incentives might be, we want to see you doing X, Y, and Z in sort of a technology transformation, and that's going to be part of your bonus as we go forward.
Thank you.
So in terms of the nominating governance committee, again, first job is identify individuals to join a board. Used to be really easy. It was like, okay, look at your golf foursome. If they're not all on the board, then there you are. There's your group. It's fortunately a little bit different now in almost every company. And what you'll see is a board matrix where there's an actual grid on kind of going down on the left are all of the skill sets that the company can benefit from having on the board. So it might be someone with cybersecurity, definitely going to be financial experts, someone with industry expertise, depending on the company. Sometimes they want marketing, sometimes they want HR, innovation, lots of things, but they will have that list of what they want. Then they actually have two lists. One is the one that they publicly disclose, which is what they currently have on the board. But then there's also the one that's, kind of what they want. And that's going to tell them where the gaps are and what they need to look for. So typically that matrix is refreshed right after the strategy is finalized, because that will then say, here's the direction that we want to go in. And we don't really have people that understand that well enough on the board. So we need to bring someone in. So that's sort of how those things work. And then, where do they get nominees? Any large company is going to use a search firm, but they're also going to work their networks. Then they look at, sort of the structure, so the formalities, what do the governance guidelines say, what are the charters of the committees, and those also are on listed publicly on the proxies. So those are always a good thing to see and to know about. But that's with the nominating and governance, to really kind of have sort of oversight over that and keep those updated and relevant. Performance evaluations, as I mentioned, with respect to the committee, there's board evaluations, there's committee evaluations. Director evaluations should be done, but they're tough because you're in this group of peers and you're trying to, kind of say, well, gee, are we going to vote someone off the island, or are we going to tell someone that, even they've made it so far in their career that we don't think that, their style is helpful in this boardroom because it's too disruptive, or, those are hard conversations, but they are happening. I'm going to stop because I see a hand up, but I can't tell who it's from.
Susan, it's Sam Polanco. A very
Sam.
quick question. Hi.
Sure.
So going back to your comment about search companies to find nominees now, are there any tools, or how do we differentiate from fraudulent search companies who are looking for board nominees, but versus the actual ones? Because I've been in LinkedIn and other tools that we have out there, I found that people are just trying to get people to be nominated to a particular board, but then to take on all of their mess, right? And then and be the fall person for an organization. Do we have access to something to be able to understand which is a valid search company versus one of those fraudulent ones?
So give me more about this on the fraudulent ones. Are they asking you for money to help you find a board seat? Is that it?
No. So what I've seen come across is that they offer you a board seat, and then and they said, yeah, we'll give you a board seat. You can be part of the technology nominating governance group, and the technology governance group, or committee. And then they go, okay, well, from that, you take on these responsibilities. But at this point, the board is going through some like hell scenario where
gotcha.
they're instead of letting the current board take the blame of what's happened, they're letting the new board members take the responsibility of whatever is going on in the organization. And you find that out after looking up, researching, and doing your proper due diligence. But I've seen a lot of that come across, like they're looking for fall people.
Yeah, that's interesting. So there's no easy way to find it out, but for every company, there's got to be due diligence. So it's, is the company in trouble? To your point, are they looking for a fall guy? And even if they're not, even if it's not in that sort of, hellscape, but just a company that you don't like the board members, or you're not crazy about the direction that the company wants to go, probably not where you want to go. So due diligence, there's no shortcut to it, but it couldn't be more important before you join a board and commit to it.
Okay, thank you.
Just one of the things that has come up, well, I'll stop again. So Ivana, yeah.
Yeah, I think that a couple of comments. So I think like the due diligence definitely is key, right? And my understanding is that there are different types of ways to serve on boards. So you can be part of like the board of directors, and then from that perspective, you have that fiduciary responsibility, and you can be sued for whatever could happen to the company. And then there's more to it, right? So then insurance, like the D&O insurance, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Directors and officers insurance is critical, right? Because then they can come after you for liabilities or for any reason on the board. But my understanding is also that there's another way to serve on a board, which is more like an advisory board.
Yes.
And then from that perspective, as an advisory board, then you don't have that fiduciary, let's say they cannot come and sue you, right? So you're there to advise. Of course, you wouldn't have the voting rights that a board of director would have, right? But you're there, you can advise on a special expertise that we might have, and you're part of it. But it's to your point, like the due diligence, maybe it's always important, but there's less risk.
Yes.
One question I had for you is, when it comes to like, we discussed, okay, maybe we're like serving on a board and there's like something that is not necessarily going the direction we want. What recommendations do you have? Like if something, like what is the exit strategy if somebody's sitting on the board, maybe you don't want to sit on the board anymore for XYZ reasons? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a tough one. For public companies, there's a huge difference between leaving a board midterm and not standing for re-election. If you it's always public. If you leave a board midterm, that signals a crisis, period. There will be something called an 8K filing, which is a required filing within, sort of a very short time frame. So it will be public that you've left that board. And everyone's going to be saying, oh, why'd she leave? What happened? Blah, 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 So that is a big deal. It's happened. And, frankly, if it's a company that's doing something where you feel that, there's compliance issues, that your liability is at stake, you may have to leave. On the other hand, it may be something where you feel that actually you can do more good by staying at the company and really, kind of pushing them to change their ways. So that's public companies. Private companies, a little bit different because there's no public announcement, but it's a reputational thing, so it's just kind of what would the message be? Typically, if you join a private equity company, for example, if it's the governing board, they would have, sort of a thesis that, we're going to spin off this company in 5 years. You may join, 3 years into that 5-year, ownership period. And so, they would ask you to commit for 2 years. You want to be pretty sure that you're comfortable committing for 2 years before you do, because yes, you could leave. But are they going to ask you to join another one of, their own boards? No. So it gets delicate. The board, you are expected to make a commitment. So you're expected to know as much as you can know before you join. And if something comes up afterwards, say there's a huge scandal that no one could possibly have known, then the decision is, do you feel that you collectively as a board can get together and get through this and get the company through this collectively? Or is it the board that's creating the problems? And then you may have to go. So then they're not easy. They're not easy. And sometimes the hardest ones are the venture companies. So, if you think about you've got some entrepreneur who has never worked with a corporate board before, doesn't really know, what's supposed to happen, is as successful as he or she is because they've got quite an ego. It takes some finesse, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So if you're concerned about it, you may want to, sort of be only join a board if you already know someone who knows the company well, that kind of thing. And a lot of people very successfully do that. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. well, investor engagement I talked about a little bit, and I know we only have a few minutes left, so I'll go through this quickly. But ESG is something that a lot of the nominating governance committees have taken on. As Martine, you said that they do in HP. It's quite common. And so what you're going to see in these committees is there may be a chief sustainability officer background who's on that board, is not a financial expert, but is an absolute expert in sort of investor engagement on sustainability issues. So that more and more is common. Interestingly, sometimes to the prior question about succession, sometimes CEO succession lives in the nominating and governance committee and not in the compensation and human capital committee. Personally, I think it's a little odd. I think it should be in sort of the talent committee, but the reason that it's done that way sometimes is because the same recruiters who do executive recruiting also do board recruiting, and they tend to be tied in with the nominating governance committee. And so you get people on that committee that sort of understand, kind of succession issues. And so then they, sort of bring that same lens to CEO succession. So it all goes to say that before you go to a board interview of a public company, you absolutely want to get online and read all of the committee charters so you know what sits in what committee. So we have just a couple of minutes left. Any other questions, comments?
Is there a certain pattern associated with one industry does the board seat? There's more committees or less committees, or is there resources? Oil companies do X, communication companies do Y, or pretty much all their Fortune 500 do very similar things on the board?
No, it's going to vary by company, but sometimes it's not necessarily by industry. It might be by complexity of company. So if a company is acquisitive, no matter what the industry, they may have an M&A committee, for example. If a company is either industrial or consumer, they may have a safety committee. So it really is very company specific.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I think hearing no other questions, we are done. And Christine, I turn it back to you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bueno, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you enjoyed the session. Any questions before we part ways?
Hey, Christine, would you mind reminding us when is the next session?
Yes, we actually have our next one is our virtual networking, and that is going to be on August 24th at the same time. Ivana?
Yeah, thank you so much, Christine. I know that I think I missed at the beginning that we're going to be having a group for us to connect a little bit more via LinkedIn. Would there be interest on the team to maybe have like a chat group where we can discuss exclusively about the program topics and curriculum?
Yeah.
That is up to you all. If you go for it, Sam, sorry.
Yeah, so maybe we can, like, whoever is interested, like, just let me know. I mean, with Christine, we can just start something and then have the conversation going in between the sessions. so that we could talk about this topic, share insights, articles, things that would help us, to your point, like industry trends, insights related to the program curriculum. So.
Ivana, if you want, what I would recommend, and this is something that we do in EEP, we no longer are using the Slack for EEP. But what you can do if you want to, whoever is interested in this, maybe reach out to Ivana so she can, create, the usernames or the emails. And Ivana, I don't know what platform you would want to use, if you want to use Slack or whatever. I don't know what general consensus would be. If you want to kind of spearhead that, then you're more than welcome to do that. As far as the LinkedIn group, I did create that, like I mentioned at the beginning of the session. We first have to be connected in order for me to invite you to the private group. So if you have not received the invite from me for us to connect, please go ahead and connect with me. You can also search it. I think I put 2023-2024 HITEC KPMG Board Readiness Program. You can also do a search for that and request for me, and I can admit you into the group. Again, just friendly reminder, the Fall Summit is October 2nd through the 4th at KPMG Lake House in Lake Nona, Florida. We will have a board readiness session on Monday the 2nd. Details to follow. We did offer group rates for Lake Nona. Just keep in mind that it is a single occupancy room. But included in that price, you will have transportation provided to you from the airport to Lake Nona, as well as food and beverage is included in that rate. If you are planning on bringing a guest with you or partner or someone with you, then you would have to stay at another hotel, which I think I listed the Hyatt Regency, which is where the gala will be on Tuesday the 3rd. Good.
And when is that?
Say it again.
Can you repeat, please? When is Lake Nona?
Lake Nona. So the summit is October 2nd to the 4th. So that is Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The Monday is going to be our in-person board readiness session. And then we'll lead into around 5 p.m. We will lead into the welcome reception for the summit. Tuesday will be the first full day of the summit, and Wednesday will be the last day of the summit. And I think that we should end around 3:30 around there on Wednesday. And the gala will be on Tuesday the 2nd. Now, the gala, we did not send registration codes for the gala. It is a fundraising opportunity for the HITEC Foundation. The tickets are $750. You are more than welcome to reach out to your HITEC POC, point of contact. Each corporate partner was allotted some tickets to the gala. I don't know, every corporate partner is different. I don't know how they distribute their tickets, but you can try to reach out to them and inquire and let them know that you're interested in going.
Last clarification on the dates. I have a networking session invite for the 17th and the 24th from you. So it's the 24th? We just have two.
The 17th. August 17th you have?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let me stop the recording for those that are going to be seeing this recording. Hold on one second.